And on this point, it's probably a good time to share like some of the questions that we received.
Yeah.
Definitely about the role of women.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure you get a lot of criticism about that. Because it's like people have said this is not representative of women I know or experiences that I know, or that the only positive person that was presented was my cousin or your cousin. You know? And I think like. Again, I think it's such a priority to show women as, human, or Muslims as human. I noticed that there weren't any, like, hijabis that were sort of explicit, and I thought that was sort of smart, because when you're dealing with an audience that might associate a lot of negativity with that hijab, you see women in hijab, and even, like, the woman who, like, who you go home with, and she's in the hijab, and then she comes back and you say, oh my god, I forgot to put it back on. But it's like a lot of the things that you do with the women in the show, like I think by design, you need to like you have to go way out there so you can talk about it, right? So, but I would love to know more about kind of what your thought was about women and the role and how you portray them.
Well, I think just on first and foremost, I run the show, and so I'm a guy, and so what ends up happening is there's a level of nuance that I bring to my experience as a guy that I have worked on stage for, between making things, whatever, for the last decade. So that stuff's all going to feel really full. It's just going to feel really full because it's the place I write from. And first season I hired, I think, three women writers. 2 are Muslim. This season again, three. But so the people are there. You know what I mean? It's not like we're sitting and just drawing a caricature and an assumption. Like we're talking. Like we're talking about it. But it's never gonna feel as balanced all the time, just by nature of that. I am the lead of it, and so there's gonna be a disparity. That being said, it can get better. Like there's things that we did there that. We're looking at a character whose problem is, on a level, is really his sexual desire. To me, it's the most human desire. I get it the most because it's the thing I've struggled with understanding between my faith, and but I also think it's healthier to talk about to me than drugs or violence. And I feel like if my character was doing cocaine, people would be like, oh, cool. They'd be like, oh, yeah. Because, like, maybe a lot of Muslims like don't deal with it. Some do, but like it'll feel further away and it would be kind of comfortable. It'd be like, yeah, he's a cokehead. It's just like it's easier. It's easier to like put it in a category. But what he deals with is sex, and so there's a fine balance to deal with it there, because so we do an episode about my sister, and her episode has to do with sex as well, and so then it becomes kind of some of the conversation has been like all the women in the show are dealing in some sort of context of sex. And I get it. It's 10 episodes. Right. It's the problem of the main character. Right. And it's also the thing we chose to focus on when we focused with the women. But I guarantee you what would have happened if I didn't do sex storylines with them. It'd be like, why is sex only for men? Why are we not talking about Muslim women in sex? Why are we talking about how hard it is for them? How come he gets to go do that? So there's always going to be like a thing that becomes an issue. And I think in terms of those characters, Arab women, I've heard from a lot of Arab women who love the characters that are portrayed, and they're like, I feel like this is a thing that I really connect to. And then I've heard from women who are Muslim who aren't Arab who are like, no, that's not me, that's not, whatever. But just to wrap up like on that question, there's just a lot more nuance that we want to do and need to do, and there's so many things. Again, you're making you only have 10 episodes. It's like not even 5 hours.
I'm wondering, just following up on this issue of sex and the women characters. I was really struck by the episode of the sister, and I don't know, how the themes developed and were decided on. One of the things that I teach a class called Muslims, Race, and Law, and we talk about all types of. And one of the things that emerged through this class is this. It's not entirely new because it comes from the days of colonialism and Orientalism. Muslim women as a fetish, as a sexual fetish, but with the age of social electronics and what do you call it? Social media. Muslim women as a sexual fetish became a category in pornography.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like black women or Asian women, but there is no fetish in pornography. Jewish women, for instance.
Yeah.
So it's or Christian women. No, it's
women in hijab.
It's women in hijab, and so I was.
How do you know that there aren't those categories?
Research.
Research. Methodical.
You seem very confident. You seem very confident to know that. How come? Like, what site?
I know a lot of things.
Okay.
So I was blown away by how you raised this issue of the fetish in the sisters episode, and it is deeply ingrained with the history of colonialism, military domination, racism, a long history in the West interacting with the Muslim world, where women become sort of the battlefield. But none of these issues were discussed, and it was just we were confronted with this fetish, and it left the viewer to sit there and go nuts reflecting on the implications of this. Was this intentional? I mean, is this part of the art, of what art does? It's to sort of like needle you and let you go off on your own, which was very different from what scholarship does.
Yeah. I mean, I think, like, for me, I wish I could say I thought of everything that you said when we were doing that. I wish I was like sitting in the writer's room being like, no, this is about colonialism, when he tries to grab her. But no, it on a level, I'm aware of those things. I read about them and went to college for 2 years. It was a really beautiful stint. But I'm not, for the reason I called my stand-up special Feelings was because that's my feeling as to like what it is you should be creating. It should all be emotionally based. It's cool if the scholarship and the facts add up to it, but that's not my job. So what would be worse is if I kind of like pretended to kind of know a book and then like act like I know what I'm talking about. I would rather be a certain type of wrong, which is, well, maybe the facts don't all add up, but at least the feelings and the emotions are true. And so when we really zoned in on a storyline like that, it was really like trying to dig into talking to women in our room, but also talking to a lot of women in my life. Were the moments where you felt the weirdest and the most cornered and oddest and most violated and really questioning this idea of whether I think America equates sexual freedom with freedom, and that's it's almost like if you're sexually free then you're free, and I think with as much as the show deals with sex, it becomes really clear that anytime you kind of chase that, you hit a certain wall. Because it's not actually the freedom that we're looking for. We're looking for a deeper understanding of ourselves. And so when we crafted that episode for her, it was about looking at this dichotomy of, well, the character of Ramy gets to run around and do whatever he wants, and the character of Dina doesn't. So she should, we want to see her fight to basically get the freedom that Ramy has. But on the other end of that, it can't be like, oh, awesome, this is a great life. Because it's actually not for Ramy either. Like, Ramy is kind of sitting in a lot of guilt and self-doubt and a lack of intimacy, actually, for the amount of intimate behavior that he's participating in. But we wanted to kind of craft a more specific wall for her to hit, and that felt like one that a lot of women who I know have dealt with.
And again, through your show, you needled the viewer in a variety of ways. You provoked us as viewers in a variety of ways. So now I'm needling you back.
Yeah.
Okay?
Please.
I noticed that the mother and the sister, their episodes, we don't actually know how they feel about Islam. Mm-hmm. And I want to know, was that intentional or no?
It was no, it wasn't. It was something that when I looked back, I feel like we have a little bit more of an understanding about how the mom feels about it through just the way she treats her kids, and she kind of wants marriage for them, and she wants certain things. But that's cultural, and it's something that we're, I mean, we're almost done writing the second season now, so it does answer some of those things. But no, we didn't get into it, and I think part of the reason why is a little bit of the style of the show. Stylistically, they're very focused episodes. I mean, if you watch them, you'll see there's always kind of one problem, and then we just follow it. And it's one character, and then we follow it. We don't do A story, B story, C story. So it kind of was a shortcoming, to be honest. It was just kind of one of those things where when I went back and I watched 1 through 10, among a couple of things, like some of the lighting, there was that was a thing where I was like, oh yeah, that we didn't get that across in an effective way, in a nuanced way. Yeah.
One of the most uncomfortable parts for me was the episode about the mother.
Yeah.
Because it's very difficult to think of our mothers in. I mean, this woman, she's obviously smart. She's her kids are grown. Her husband, like a lot of Egyptian husbands in the United States, is very interested in the musalsalat, on TV, and sort of takes his wife for granted.
Yeah.
And yet we don't want to think of our mothers as having sexual desires and wanting intimacy outside the home. And so I couldn't help when I was watching this, and especially the part where she puts the makeup on and
it's horrifying.
But then it turns out that the French speaking dude, I intentionally, as a sheikh, say dude to sound cool. That's my participation.
Diffuses all the scholarship.
I try.
Even when you're doing like Islam stuff, like.
Especially
like in the middle of talking about hadith, you're like the dude
I just put it in to confuse people. So you're not the only one confusing people, just so you know. So the French-speaking dude then it turns out to be interested in his wife and
his own
so
wife.
In his own wife
Yeah.
So I couldn't help but think, one is, how did your mother react to this episode? And how did mothers that you know in your life react to that episode? Because it just stayed with me, and I have to tell you that a lot of the episodes that I watch, right after I would watch your episode, I would need to calm down by reading Quran. And so I would do 2 rak'ahs and then read Quran and then sit there and just plead with Allah to give me peace and tranquility. So
you're saying my show brought you closer to
yes, absolutely. Your show made me worship much more.
I mean, we're done, right? It's amazing.
So but how did your mother react, and where? I mean, again, how do you negotiate this issue where you decide, okay, I'm going to go to the most uncomfortable thing, the sexuality of mothers.
It in terms of how my mom reacted to it, she was like, moms have an amazing way of just skipping over things and kind of like they pick what they want to focus on, and then the rest is kind of, I mean, that's being a mom. Being a mom is mastering this ability to ignore things that would bother you about your kids, because your kids are gonna go out and live these full 3D lives that have nothing to do with you, and they're living in times that are different from yours. So that's like the mom's Jedi master trick of being able to let go. And so she was watching the episode, and she called me. She said it was her favorite one. And she was like, oh my god, I love this part, I love this part, I love this part. The part with the guy and I didn't like that part. But the other part, and like she just like kind of like it didn't even mean it. Like she just kind of skipped over it. And you know, these things, it's really, these TV episodes, these things that we make, these aren't like, you know, sometimes I think, I don't know what it's like in music. I'm not in music, but I know a lot of people spend a really long time on an album. TV's like, yo, it's coming out April 19th. But that's it. You gotta make 10. They gotta be ready. And I don't say that as anything other than, you know, you're kind of going through it, and it ties a little bit to your question about exploring the how they feel about faith and stuff. Certain things kind of like slip through, you know, or whatever it might be. But what I really was very happy about with that episode with the mom was that it did touch something that was uncomfortable. It's something that I think a lot of people relate to, and it also showed kind of like, this was something I did not intend in the writing, but when I look back on it, it showed kind of two sides of a coin, where 2 episodes earlier I have this experience with someone who is married, and then 2 episodes later you actually see it from the married person's perspective. Now it doesn't go through in any level like that. It's probably not even serious, but you see just the seed of it, and you kind of see the seed of what these feelings look like, and those feelings are not unique to our communities. They're not unique to, these are feelings that sit in any relationship, in any marriage, in any family, and that episode in particular, people really responded to in a way, and I know a lot of people said it reminded them of their mothers. I know a lot of people who said their mothers told them to watch it. I know a lot of that. And no, it was an episode that really resonated with most of the episodes that really resonated with people were the ones that I wasn't in, and you know.
It's very kind of you. But
Yeah.
I know that's true at all. I mean, I think the episode with the married woman. That's the episode that.
Yeah, we were watching and we were like, no, don't.
Yeah.
I have to say
that's
that's the episode that caused me the most salah and dua. I was intensely in dua after that episode for a long time.
You know, I didn't let my parents see the show until like 3 days before it came out. I sent it to them because I was like, I wanted them to be able to tell their friends and stuff, like, you know, he didn't tell us anything, and he, you know, we couldn't stop him, you know. Just like that, I felt like that was the best like adab I could have, other than being like full like alil adab like outside of that. Like I was like, if I'm gonna do that, like at least I can have some sort of respect for them and keep them in the dark.